Greetings and bienvenue, MITZU. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
What are the strangest phone calls that you've experienced? Be me, around 2010 or so. Getting off airplane, walking down the gangway into the airport. Full flight, lots of people around me. Right as I come through the gate into the waiting area. The middle payphone in a bank of 3 on the wall opposite begins to ring. What is a payphone doing here, and when was the last time you saw one that accepted incoming calls? He used to crank call as a kid, and that feature was rare back in the 90s. I'm staring at it as I walk forward. No one else even acknowledges it. Pick it up. Hello, man's voice on the other end.
Oh, thank God. Listen, I need to talk to a woman named Martha. She's about 5'9", blonde, shoulder-length hair. And she should be getting off the plane at gate 36 degrees Celsius. And wearing a green top.
Look over to gate 36 degrees Celsius. I'll be damned. There she is now. Okay, hang on 1 second. Set down phone and approach very attractive total stranger. She's literally walking off the gangway as I spy her, and I intercept before she's out of the waiting area. Hi there. Martha. She's weirded out but smiling. There's enough of a crowd around that this isn't threatening. Creepy, but it's still odd.
Yes.
Sorry to bother you. But that phone was ringing and someone gave me your name and description, and he really needs to talk to you. Haha, it's a little weird to me too. But no one else was answering, so. She goes to take the call. I go to baggage claim. She comes up to me like 15 minutes later when she sees me at the luggage carousel. She asks,
So, you didn't know who that was, but you found me from his description.
Yeah, no clue. Who is it?
I have no idea. He was looking for a different Martha. The call wasn't for me.
We stare at each other, waiting for one to admit the prank or reveal the hidden camera. 2 beats. What? Seriously?
Yeah, I'm not the right Martha. Apparently.
She shrugs and kinda ha-hays. We're both just too shocked by the improbability of it. Polite murmurs and go out separate ways.
Might have been top-tier bait, but I'm fairly sure I heard a guy make contact with aliens and get picked up by the government when I was talking to him. I was talking to this guy in some random server a while back. Me and him were just chatting about random things. After about an hour of talking, he says he's gonna go drive around his property. Said there's been people driving dirt bikes on his property. He lived in Kentucky. He hops in his truck and starts driving around. We keep talking about random stuff while he's driving around. After about 5 to 10 minutes of driving, he tells me he sees some lights out in the distance. He hops out of the truck and starts walking. He yells out something like, "Hey, I'm gonna call the cops," and after that I heard this extremely loud noise. I have no way to describe it, but it was deafening. After that, you could hear this guy fall onto the ground and start running. He gets back to his truck and the guy starts panting, crying. He's sitting there contemplating if he should even turn his truck back on or not. He decided to just call the cops instead. He dials up 911, puts the operator on speaker so I can hear. Tells the story and location, etc., etc. About 10 to 15 minutes later, he tells me a couple SUVs pull up. I can hear him talking to some guy from inside his truck. The man asks him to step out to talk to him, which he does. After that, I can't really hear anything, but after a while I can hear someone open up the truck and mess around with the phone. And heard a guy say something like, "Is this a phone call?" Heard him reply, "Okay," then he hung up. Never heard from the guy since. Still don't know if I should believe it or not. I find it hard to believe that someone would talk to me for around 3.5 hours just to pull some prank like that. On top of that, he would have to be a pretty amazing actor with some great sound equipment with other people in on the prank.
My father got a text from my grandma. His mother saying love you a couple months after she passed away. Nobody had her phone. Can't think of any calls besides one I got that was just a series of beeps.
Alright, I'll bite. Not exactly paranormal, but maybe someone has had something similar happen and can better explain the oddity of it. Used to have an old phone number. It was spammed quite frequently with random calls, texts, etc. One of the texts was about some place called Grace Cafe based out of Fort Worth, I believe. I didn't bother looking into it, but from what I gathered, it was something like a church kitchen, if that makes sense. The point is, I would get these texts that detailed the times that this church or whatever would meet. There was an email attached with a contact for some guy named Larry Gallas, which I assume was the organizer for these events. So I emailed him, mentioned my number and how I wasn't even a member of this church or whatever. He replies, saying that my number was present in whatever registry he had. Guy apologies, says he removed it and that it would no longer be a bother. This stops for a while, I no longer get any of the meeting times. The kicker is, I changed my number entirely about a year after this had ended. Within 2 months, I get the same Grace Cafe messages with the meeting times. What are you doing, Larry?
Had an older friend in college that was a professional athlete in her home country, Armenia. Her team was staying in a hotel for a competition, and during the night someone from the hotel lobby knocked on her door and said she had an important phone call downstairs. The rooms didn't have their own phones because it was the 80s in Armenia. She picked up the phone and heard her own voice say, "Maya, can you hear me? Are you okay?" She's like, "WTF, who are you? What is this?" The caller hung up. None of her relatives knew she was there, and it was her own voice that she heard. Then that big deadly Armenian earthquake happened right there in the middle of the night. She rushed back to her floor to help her teammates evacuate, and it was a mess. They stepped on dead bodies as they made their way out and back downstairs. She saw her own room, and the ceiling and wall right above her bed collapsed, and would have killed her had she not taken that mysterious phone call.
Be me, 14 or 15. My friend and I are leaving birthday party and headed to his place. Notice our vision range going down. See a really tall man behind us around 20 meters away. This thing is almost 3 meters tall. Lots of weird noises going on around us. Start freaking out, walking really fast. My house is closer decide to there instead. The man keeps the exact same distance the entire way. Mother calls me. Answer, and there's extremely heavy static, can barely make out my mom's voice. There's another voice in there too. Speaking gibberish or another language, but definitely sounded like words. Static just keeps getting heavier and louder, and hear a ringing around us. Everything suddenly stops, the man is gone, I can hear my mom clearly on the phone, the noises around us cease.
Didn't happen to me personally, but I remember reading about this. Source: letters sent to the Fortean Times magazine.
Back around 1975 when I was 9, some of the kids I knocked around with insisted we all pile into the nearest phone box to hear a spooky message. By dialing a number, I think it was made up of zeros, twos and ones, and without needing to insert 2 pence. A woman, speaking in a curiously monotone voice, could be heard saying, help me, Susie's dying," over and over. Some of the lads said she sometimes said, help me, Susie's drowning," always in the same slow, seemingly bored tone of voice. Was it some weird engineer's test signal? Hence no money needed.
I remember the spooky message when I was a child playing with the old red phone boxes in Burnley. 2 phone boxes in particular were prone to mysterious, scary voice messages. One at the top of Dalton Street on Planetary Estate, and the other at the end of Harold Street on Stoops Estate. As I remember, you put 2p in the slot and dialed 20202020, and the voice on the other end would be crackly but audible. "Help me, Susie's dying," which would send us kids running in all directions.
I am from Burnley and have a vivid memory of the strange phone message. In either 1980 or 1981, 3 other girls and myself were loitering with the intent not to go back to school after lunch. We were messing around in a phone box near to school, calling random numbers and talking rubbish if anyone answered. We thought it was funny. One of the girls said she knew a number you could call to hear a spooky message. I think there were 3s and 2s in it. When she called this number, we all heard the message as quoted in previous correspondence. I have no doubts as to the phrasing of what I heard. It was a clear voice with no audible distortion. Needless to say, we were all a bit freaked out by this, and when a British Telecom van pulled up nearby, we made a hasty retreat and returned to school.
9 years old. Back in the good old days before cell phones. Landline rings while me and the folks are having dinner. It was normal for me to answer so my parents could keep eating. "Hello?"
Hello, is this Anon Anderson?
The voice sounded like Art Bell or something. "Yes, sir. Who is this?"
You're Anon Anderson from the library earlier.
"I was at the library earlier with my mom, but we didn't see anyone there we knew." "Yes, that was me."
What are you doing tomorrow, Anon?
"Nothing. Who are you?"
This is Santa Claus.
"What?" Mom yells.
Who is that?
"I don't know."
then hang up.
Okay, hey sir. I have to go.
Show me your underwear tomorrow at the library.
What? Click, go back to eating with the folks. Forget all about it. I went to that library every week during the summer. Never noticed anyone watching me. My guess is it was a cousin of mine screwing with me.
In 2003, I was 11 or 12 years old. After school, my then best friend and I were making phone pranks to random numbers. No internet, no social media times, haha. Soon after he left, I got a call, someone alleging we threat to kill his daughter. I was shocked, thinking my friend was an idiot. I told the guy sorry, was my stupid friend with my house's phone, but the guy kept insisting, saying I was in a big trouble. Then another lady called me saying she was proceeding with a lawsuit, that in order to stop I had to pay lots of money. That was the first time I felt anxiety and paranoia. I was so scared that I couldn't tell mom. Then after 6 hours of harassment, the lady finally said to me, I will drop the sue process, but don't ever again call me. This is not paranormal at all, however it's weird, two adults having so much time to troll a kid. I've always wondered if we mistakenly called the wrong dangerous people or if it was just extortion. The other day I told my friend and he told me he would never threaten to kill anyone.
One time I got a random phone call at 2 a.m. and didn't recognize the area code. It was a 6-year-old girl who had her mom's phone. She said her mom was passed out on the couch. She was fine, just drunk. I wanted to make sure everything was okay, told her to dial 911 if there was an emergency, etc. I tried to get her to wake mom up, but she said she was too scared. Being mildly perplexed yet entertained, I talked to her for about 20 minutes about school, pets, etc., then reminded her to dial 911 if anything happens, then hung up. Still really strange in retrospect.
Pretty weird, I guess, but never answer my phone. Friends and family either text or email. Ignore all calls as a result unless I'm hoping for a call back for a job. Every now and then I get a call from some random number. Sometimes they leave messages in my voicemail. Never bothered to clear it up for months. Finally bored enough one day and decided to clear it out. First one I hear is an irate woman telling me to leave her daughters alone already and threatening to call the police. Second one is the same woman but under a different number saying she knows I've been around and she's in contact with the authorities and I'm going to rot in jail. Third one is the same woman with the first number crying, saying she's sorry. Fourth one is a third number with the same woman screaming to give her daughters back. The rest weren't interesting. Silent for a minute before hanging up, an automated hello. Before hanging up. These were all done in the last 2 weeks of me checking. Never hear back from that woman again after this. I chalked it up to some bipolar woman losing custody of her children and getting the wrong number, but I still think about it from time to time.
Finally get home from 2 months vacation in Arizona. Notice my answering machine is full. This was the late 90s. Listen to the messages. Mostly normal stuff. Telemarketers. Final couple or what sounds like an old man sobbing. Final message is loud shrieking and a banging noise. Get freaked out and play them for friends. No one knows what the hell it is. A month goes by. Phone rings in the middle of the night. Answer it.
Hello, Anon, you never return my calls. I just wanted to see how you're doing.
Hang up freaked out. Stay up all night with gun out. Never hear from them again. To this day, it's the weirdest interaction I've ever had. Kind of freaks me out still.
Never got a strange call, but I do receive some weird textings. This has happened to me like 3 times. Always happens in the middle of the night, around 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. I just hear a text being received by my cell phone. Even the screen lights on and there is an icon of an unread text message on the locked screen. I remember to read a part of the text, as much as is shown on the locked screen. But at the moment I unlock the cell phone, there is no message. It's not that I had read the text, it is just that there is no such text on the list of messages. It's like it was erased as soon as I unlocked the cell phone. The first time this happened, I just told myself this was just a dream and discarded all that happened, but this same situation occurred 2 more times. The last time around 5 or 6 years ago. The last message, as far as I remember, was something about the sender wanting to talk with me about something and some meaningless were the text cuts. Even today, I can't explain WTF was that or what triggered these texts.
Not so much my personal experience and not necessarily paranormal, but about 3 years ago my mum would receive calls fairly regularly late at night at about 2 a.m. Sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes less, but no less than once a month. Lasted just over a year. The calls would come from an unlisted number and would generally start with a very soft, "Mum," then follow with either heavy breathing or quiet sobbing. Voice wouldn't respond to my mum's questions or anything and would generally last a minute before hanging up. For the first couple of months my mum would call me straight away asking about it. I'm a long-time sufferer of clinical depression, she knows this and assumed it was me having a breakdown. I've never called like that and it's happened while I've been awake, so it's not sleep dialing. I gave 2 younger brothers, but she said it sounds exactly like me, and both my brothers lived with mum at the time. Should point out too, my mom is a firm believer in spirits. She used to talk about seeing guardian figures in our family home, walking into the bedrooms of me and my brother's rooms. Anyway, it hasn't happened in a while and we never got an answer to what the calls were.
Nothing nearly as crazy as your stories. In the late 90s/early 2000s, wireless home phones were weird. I could pick up other phone conversations. What else? Oh yeah, I called 911 on a phone that was seemingly disconnected, no dial tone, when I was like 10 and the cops showed up.
Be me. Around 5 or 6 years old. At great aunt's house for a reunion. Playing with cousins. One of my older cousins decides we are going to play fire. Looks straight at me and explains that we are just pretending there is a fire. It is not actually real.
All right, Anon, I am going to say fire. But there is not going to be a real fire. It's all fake.
Nod my head yes.
Oh no, there's a fire.
Oh shit.jpg. Run to the nearest phone. Dial 911. Cousin chases me down, punches me until she can force phone from my hands.
Stop, Anon. There's no fire, Anon.
Finally loosens my grip enough to hang up phone. Run off crying. Find my mom and explain what happens. Just then a second cousin walks into the room.
Hey, did anyone call the police? They just called about a concerning message they received.
I start bawling.
Have this dream. In a factory. Typical wacky dream shit going on. Go through the back door of the factory. Walk out into a sort of Disney cartoon. A bit like on Who Framed Roger Rabbit when Valiant is in Toontown. Don't like it. Has this weird sort of opera. Choir kind of music in the background. But it's really foreboding and eerie. Whole place feels foreboding and eerie. Start panicking. See phone booth. Use phone booth. Call myself to come rescue myself. Wake up sweating. Time to get up anyway. Go downstairs. See I have message on answering machine. Play message. It's the same music from the dream and someone talking, but you can't make out what's being said. The message was received just before I woke up. Maybe I called my house phone with my mobile while I was sleeping, like some kind of muscle memory thing. Although that wouldn't explain the background music. Remember, my mobile was downstairs charging the whole night anyway. Link related, it's the voicemail.
Link is in the description.
TLDR, I called myself from a dream, I think.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.